Hey everyone, waiting for some people to jump on here. Today we're going to be talking to Paul Benson, who is a licensed partner with Engel and Völkers. He has, I said 28 yesterday. That was old information. I can't even keep up with this guy. He's actually at 32. 32 shops in the US. So super excited to talk to him, get his ideas of kind of what's going on in the market, get his suggestions on what sellers can be doing, what agents can be doing, how I know he has some financial information regarding the market and kind of where it's headed. So super excited to have him on as a guest speaker. And as soon as he jumps on here, I will add him to our conversation. I'm not even sure where he is right now. He travels quite a bit and he has shops throughout California, Nevada, and Utah. I think he started in Utah. And I've known Paul since, I don't even know what year it would have been, but he was actually a top producer, one of the top producers in the world for Sotheby's. And then now he's switched over to, I'm going to find out when, I can't remember, but he switched over to Engel and Völkers, and he was one of the first calls that I made in deciding when I was determining whether or not to come over. We were with the same brokerage previously. So yeah, we'll be super excited to get him on here as soon as I see him pop up. Yeah, just again, some of the topics we're going to be talking about is kind of I know he's had some discussions with some people in the know regarding the economy. I think he had a conference call yesterday that was pretty interesting. So he's going to share that information with us. Also talking about just what he sees in the market and what he kind of anticipates. So I know we all have our opinions and our little piece of the world, but I really will respect coming from him. He's kind of I guess you could say like a real estate celebrity. He's been doing it for a long time. And my research shows, and we'll verify this with him, but he's done over $2 billion in sales, which is impressive. No matter where you are or who you are, that is impressive. Some of the other things we'll be talking about are just, let's see here, still waiting to see him come on. Haven't seen it yet. Also talking to him about just what sellers can be doing right now. What can they be doing to be best prepared for this market? Although we're all in shelter right now, we still have, I know Katie shared with us yesterday that our website for new viewers, for new users, was up 120%. So what we're seeing is right now people are kind of stuck at home and looking for things to do. And as it ends up, looking at real estate is a pretty popular thing. So I think what we're going to see in states like Montana is a big surge in business once this is over with. So what we don't know, of course, is when it will be over with, or if we've hit. I have a feeling that it might get a little bit worse before it gets better, but it will get better, and there is a time frame on it, and that's some of the enlightening information that he has for us. So just waiting for him to jump on so I can add him. And oh, here he is. So hold on one sec here while I add him. Connecting. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Good morning. Good afternoon, I guess. How are you?
Almost afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so humbled. I told my husband I'm a little nervous. I just think Paul Benson is so cool. So I'm so excited that you're here with us. And I was giving a little bit of background before you jumped on, just talking about, and I don't remember. So I've been with Engel and Völkers for about 2.5 years, I guess. And you were one of the first calls that I made in deciding to make the decision, because we had been with another brokerage prior to that, the same brokerage prior to that. What year did you make the decision, and kind of what made you decide to come to E&V?
Sure. I ultimately made the decision in October of 2014. I was with the Blue brand, as many of you know, as Sotheby's. I was happy. The ultimate decision for me, which I think plays more now than it ever did, was people. I met the group in New York, Anthony Hitt and Jill, and our entire corporate office, and I could feel the passion there to kind of take all of the tools we had at Sotheby's, but to add a people element and a connectivity that I felt was missing, and I just loved it, and I'm so thrilled I did, because although I've seen a lot of those examples over the years that made it a worthy decision, I've never seen more of that than I've seen the last couple of weeks as far as a true, caring, passionate group that is here to support us.
Mm-hmm. And you included in that, and that's one of the things. I know you have a background in marketing also, and you guys do such a good job with yours. And for me, that was one of the bigger factors, was just the marketing platform. But I'll never forget that the thing that you said when I called, and I'll never forget, you were driving and you said, Don, everything you were told you were going to get, you're going to get times 10. Like, you just have to make this move. You're not going to believe the difference. And of course, you know, you hear that whatever brokerage you're with, but truly seeing the difference. And I would agree with you. I think just the fact that you're willing to jump on here with us today, you're so humble for the amount of success that you've had. Some of the numbers I pulled, I know you've done over 2 billion in sales, which is super impressive. You've done over how many transactions? I looked it up and I wrote it down. Yeah, thousands of transactions. You've been #1 in Utah for sales for over 10 years. Is that right? In Utah?
Yes.
Are you there?
I've been
Yeah.
I've been #1 in I've been #1 in Utah 10 of the last 12 years.
That's fantastic. And then I know too, with Engel and Völkers, you were 2 years running, you were the top producer in the world. And that is so impressive, especially considering it's a European company that, you know, they've got a pretty full force running in Europe. And for you to jump to that status is really impressive. So I already said this earlier before everybody jumped on, but I had done some research. The last information I found said 28 shops. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even keep up with this guy. He's up to 32 now.
We are at 32. Yes, we added Bend, Oregon and Scottsdale recently. And, you know, I think what stands out in all of that to me is we've never bought an office. We've never bought an agent. You know, it's just been a very organic growth of people that, like-minded people that want to work together and collaborate and share ideas and do business across boundaries, you know. So it's fun to see. I love watching it grow.
And I mean, I have close relationships with some of your kind of your leaders in your different markets. And the thing that I find so impressive is every one of them finds you inspiring and is so glad to be associated with you. So I'm probably making you uncomfortable with all of this, talking about how amazing you are. But I did just want to give that background. And one of the things today that I really wanted to do, and, you know, I often feature kind of local businesses on our live streams just to kind of help promote their business and give people, recognize them, but also help them promote their business. I thought it might be an important time to kind of reach out to someone from another market, and in your case, several other markets, just to talk about what they're seeing, you know, what you're seeing in your markets. The news, unfortunately, there's a lot of information out there. Not all of it even agrees. It's, you know, it's all over the board. And some of it I think is probably not completely true. And so I think it's a good idea just to talk to someone like you on the front lines in real estate in several different markets. I want to talk about what you're seeing. This morning when we chatted, I know you've had some conversations with some people that are really in the know regarding kind of the, you know, the finances of the world. And I think it'd be important for people to hear that it's not all doom and gloom. So if you don't mind sharing just what you shared with me this morning, whatever you can share without,
Sure.
You know, with
Sure.
confidentiality.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. You know, one of the things I've witnessed over the past few weeks is the amount of people willing to share and pick each other's brains and you know, the amount of conversations that are happening every day. I've really never been part of anything like it. I've turned into kind of a sponge. I just want to absorb all of these kind of opinions or perspectives, I guess, of where we are, where we're going. You know, I've definitely being in so many different markets, I've gotten to the point where I see the wave, you know, where I can almost predict what people are going to go through, at least in these early stages, because we've had different markets with different timing as far as when they're shut down, what level they're shut down, how their clients react at first, especially their sellers, or in the middle of transactions. You know, and I can almost see that kind of the evolution happening now, and which helps. You know, it helps manage the stress level, because I think a lot of what we're going through is stress of the unknown. So what I've really focused on in the past couple weeks is what I like to call the common denominators, the things that I'm hearing the most from the most amount of people, and generally speaking, people that are much smarter than myself. We were talking this morning about a couple quotes from Mark Cuban. I loved his quote as far as this will be an incredible example of capitalism as we come out of this. That's a good one. But in speaking with whether it's the head of Johns Hopkins or head of real estate for Goldman Sachs or the editor-in-chief of Mansion Global, or one of the largest real estate holders in Los Angeles, one of the things I have found is that there's a set of common beliefs that it seems more people have than not, and those are that this is a more defined factor in our economy than a recession or a depression. This is much more like a natural disaster for a few reasons. One, the timeline, which is obvious, but even if we do not know when this will end, we do know that when we feel it ending, that there will be an increased confidence in the economy. Not necessarily across the board. We don't know when restaurants will open or hotels and so forth, but we do know that there will be an increased confidence in the economy and more money being spent. And when you have that kind of momentum, we generally know where that's going to go.
Right.
We also know that these times are more defined in what's impacted: restaurants, hospitality, and so forth. But for everything that's impacted, what's not being talked about as much is what is kind of increasing. We know Amazon's doing well right now. We know there are a lot of companies, whether they're making video meetings or Instagram, or there are a lot of businesses that people can invest in right now and are investing in. And in some cases, they're just pulling their money off the sidelines.
Right.
And in many cases, wanting to put it into real estate. Mm-hmm. So this is a different kind of financial disaster than what we've been through in the past. And it's one that's going to be faster. And there are other factors that I think I'm noticing in the different markets. We were on a San Francisco manager call this morning, as well as a Beverly Hills manager call. People are pulling their properties off the market. They're afraid. And generally speaking, in recession, more properties are going on the market than coming off. So you have a low inventory. And in some cases lower than it was even during the busiest time of last year. And I think that's something that I find interesting, because we've never really been in a situation where we have to figure out we have an economy issue, but we still have a low inventory issue. And there are still people with money, but yet there's people that need to sell. There are people that are losing their jobs, and this is affecting people. But I believe that places like where you are, specifically in Montana, are going to become more attractive. And we're already seeing that in Park City. We're seeing, people wanting to leave their 2,000 or 3,000 square foot multi-million-dollar condo in a big city because, they have to take an elevator. They have to be in crowds. When they do go downstairs to get on the street, there's people if they want to walk. And, whereas in the mountains, you can kind of go out and walk and be by yourself, and feel and have that safety.
Mm-hmm. Often on your own property,
Yes.
In Montana, we're so sparsely populated for the amount of land that we have. And we do, I did mention this before you jumped on, and I know that I told you this morning, but we've had an increase for new users on our website is up 120%. So I do feel like for sellers, this is a really good time to be on the market because this is when people are looking. And when they're out of lockdown, when they have the ability to start looking at houses again, they're going to be, they're going to be spending money and making those decisions. I know I have a buyer out of California right now that said, gosh, I just wish I would have pulled the trigger last summer so we could be in Montana right now. And I have a buyer that just got here from New York. And he couldn't get out of there fast enough to come here and hunker down and go on self-quarantine. So that's what I've been saying. So I'm so glad to know that that's coming from your perspective when you're seeing it from such a much bigger picture than what we see it just here in Montana. What are some of the things that you and your teams are telling their sellers right now about the market? Of course, there's always the question of, and of course, we're not showing houses right now unless they're vacant and we can do digital showings or virtual showings. We're not showing houses. We genuinely are on lockdown. But what are some of the things that you're telling your sellers about moving forward? What things are important? I mean, obviously they need to be priced correctly. They need to be well marketed, but how are you reassuring them that this is going to come back, and when it comes back, they're going to get their property sold?
You know, one of the favorite things for me when I joined Engel Völkers was our title, advisor versus agent versus salesman. And, you know, I find this kind of a moment where we truly get to really dive deep into that definition, because I think that that answer is going to be different for different sellers. But so I really want to take all of the information in and make sure that the seller situation might be short term or the curve or whatever everyone's predicting. The way we're doing business right now might not be short term. This may be, and I believe it to be, a paradigm shift. You know, I believe that there will be clients that get really comfortable with what we're doing right now and will say, hey, wait a minute, why do I want to spend my Saturday afternoon touring homes in person when I can have Dawn take her camera and go through the home, and we can sit in our living room and view these homes and then narrow it down to one or two and come see that home and buy that home. You know, I do believe there will be shifts. We'll do things more digitally, more paperless, all the things that we've had the capabilities of doing, but we haven't used on a regular basis. So I want my sellers to understand that I perceive what we're going through right now to be a longer term run in terms of how we're doing business, but also in terms of the fact that there will be buyers that are comfortable with this and getting more comfortable. I mean, when a buyer wants to buy and somebody tells that buyer, no, you can't buy, I think we all know what happens. They want to buy even more. You know, it's interesting. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's a lot of people sitting at home right now saying, hey, you can't go look at homes. And right. So that market does exist. So I think it's important that our sellers understand that our role is, you know, I certainly don't believe that there's more buyers now than there were a month or two ago. You know, I don't think that, but I do believe there are still buyers, and I believe that that number is going to continue to grow as we become more comfortable with the change. Mm-hmm. And so that we as listing agents are going to be taking the proper steps. We can close transactions digitally. You know, in most states, you're allowed to do appraisal still, even if it's a drive-by. The banks are allowing that. Mm-hmm. You know, and most buyers are more flexible with their expectations on things like inspections than they have been in the past. So understanding that there is a new norm means we can do business in that norm. That means you, the seller, can also end up possibly and hopefully selling your home in this norm as well.
Mm-hmm. And what are you seeing, Paul? I know you deal with some very, very high net worth clients, but all across the board, not just that sector of the market, all across the board. What are you seeing with people regarding the stock market versus real estate? I'm just curious to see like what your clients are doing right now, because obviously the stock market's taken a huge hit in this, and who knows when that will recover. And how are you advising them? And I just want to pop back really quick when you talked about one of the things with Engel and Völkers is we do have advisors versus agents, but we don't just, that's not just a title. I mean, we train them to be advisors versus agents. So I think that's an important piece that we try to put our teams out there, you know, fully educated and kind of understanding what they're dealing with. So then back to the question, what are you seeing for the stock market versus real estate, and kind of what are your, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what would your prediction be with that, just based on what you know?
Sure, and I loved your statement there. We train our agents to be advisors. That's amazing. I love hearing that, Dawn. You know, I believe that, and I believe this from hearing it over and over. But my wealthiest clients, for example, are still moving forward with deals that they could have received refunds on. Mm-hmm. You know, they're under contract. The earnest money has not become non-refundable because the due diligence deadline hasn't hit yet. Over the past week or two, I've seen over and over and over my clients and throughout our company transactions proceeding. You know, I was on a call with one of the largest title companies in California yesterday, and March was actually a record month, and they're predicting April to be just a little bit off last April. there are definitely transactions still occurring, and it seems like those that really know how to play their money are watching the data and believing that this is more of a short-term financial impact. I do believe there's a lot of people think the stock market will go down further, but they also believe, those same people believe it will rebound. They have different opinions, 3 months, 6 months, 2 years. But the reality that real estate is there's less homes really than any other kind of recession we've ever been through on the market. The inventory is still low enough that homes are viewed as a safer investment or a preservation of capital, safer than cash, safer in some cases, and definitely safer than stocks. So I would say definitely the consensus out there is don't make long-term decisions off short-term problems. And short-term, I'm not belittling. It could be 2 months, it could be 2 years. But for most people, real estate is longer than a 2-year decision. And I'm definitely finding the majority of the clients out there that make financial decisions believe that.
And are you seeing with the interest rates where they are? I mean, I think I haven't had any transactions cancel. I think in our whole company, we've maybe only had a couple that were a little iffy or that extended. I think for sellers, we're a little bit slower just because, for one, I want to make sure I can get a photographer there and keep everybody safe from any kind of, we're still keeping our social distancing, so I'm being careful to get photographers in, but we're not really seeing a slowdown that way. Are you experiencing that in any of your markets? People postponing or people pulling out?
Yeah, we've had banks pull out, and we've had banks delay, and we've had banks that closed on time perfectly. So where I've tried to really kind of sort through it is really right now I think the bigger banks are the safer bets for clients. I'm seeing like the JP Morgans and Wells Fargo's perform as promised, and yes, there's definitely sometimes concern. Like we had a situation a couple days ago where we had to do a digital notary because of the lockdown, and the digital notary had a 6-day backlog. The client was in Vancouver, the home was in Sundance, Utah. We were able to bribe a different digital notary to go out and do it. We had to get creative, but we all kind of banded together to do that. But there are definitely some smaller lenders that have been really creative with some products over the past couple of years that I'm seeing a little bit more impacted right now. There's definitely some liquidity issues out there that you have to, if you really dive into what's going on in the banking world, the zero Fed rate was there to really help the banks get through some of these issues. It didn't mean interest rates were necessarily going to go down, and in some cases have gone up. But the larger banks are definitely performing, and I don't see an issue with that in the near future.
And then just kind of in terms of kind of what, again, I know you can't predict the future, but what do you see as being kind of the upside of this whole thing? Like, I do think we'll have an uptick and a surge in markets in certain states. I think in the states that don't have the benefit of being sparsely populated and a lot of land to sell, I think that for real estate, there's just going to be a lot of places sold because people are going to be relocating and moving to other areas. Would you agree with that? Do you think that's probably how that will go?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this. Over the past few years, it shocked me just how much more global real estate has been. The amount of going from my different offices, seeing the amount of new international business and those percentages rising sometimes by the month. It's been like San Francisco, seeing the amount of Italians coming in and the amount of Germans, and not just Chinese buyers to the coast like I had seen in previous years. We've become a much. I also think that what this has done is it has exposed certain countries' healthcare systems more than other countries. That we have in some of our areas here, compared to other cities. So I actually am, this is just me talking on this one, but I'm actually predicting we will have more European business than we've had in the past. I'm seeing things like there are people that have been waiting for so many years in places like San Francisco for the recession to hit. they're just, those naysayers, like, it's got to hit, it's got to hit, it's got to hit. Well, they're kind of lined up looking for the price drops, so yes, there's going to be people that want to leave San Francisco, for example, or New York. I'm not picking on San Francisco. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. I'm just, as an example, there might be someone that's cramped up, that's feeling like, hey, I want to get out to the country. So now here, you'll have these country buyers, but there's still somebody that's been waiting, either renting or on the sidelines, waiting for a better deal in that city. So I do see a very transactional market. I think we're going to come out of this being a little sharper than we've been, a little bit more compassionate, and a lot more connected. We mentioned earlier,
those are good things. Like, those are really good things. So when that was my next question for you, kind of wrapping up, was just like, what do you see as the silver lining? And I think you jumped to it with that. Like, that's what I think. I think we're going to see, it's going to be a different world than we've ever known it before. But I think there's some good things about that. So maybe, if you could expand on that a little bit, I'd love to hear more thoughts from you.
No, I do. I get excited about it because it's, when I first mentioned why I joined Engel Völkers, when we first started this, the connectivity, the people, that to me has been kind of my secret sauce for years. I have always believed that while I'm sitting in Park City, Utah, I have to be able to find buyers for my listings outside of Utah. I have to be able to find those buyers in California, New York, or Miami. So therefore, I have to have those relations. And I never imagined 4 or 5 years later having relationships all over the world, like knowing David in Paris, or Timo in Florida, or Irving, or relationships in Italy or Dubai. I never imagined having sincere relationships, not contacts, not business cards, but friends all over the world. And I think what's happened over the past couple of weeks is there's a lot more of that happening. Our agents and our advisors are building relationships. We have one advisor that's every morning she wakes up and calls somebody new in Europe just to say, how are you? I know you're going through a really hard time, harder than we are. Tell me how that is. It ends up kind of being a real estate conversation by the end. She has a friend for life, in that relationship. And I believe that's going to improve our industry. It's going to improve our working relationships. It's going to improve our creativity, our collaboration, our sharing. So I do see there will be better things coming out of this. We predicted 4 or 5 years ago, I remember sitting in a kind of a focus group where the prediction was, in the next 3 to 5 years, our industry will change dramatically. Well, I never knew we'd have this kind of catalyst that caused the change, but the change is here, and the clients are really, from what I'm seeing, kind of enjoying watching us change and kind of enjoying being able to do things a little differently. So I do believe that this kind of got a lot of people jump started on really realizing have to do this. We have an agent in Marin County. She's in her 70s and she sells a lot of homes, bless her heart. She has never embraced technology, and here she is doing videos and paperless and embracing. Awesome. And there's so many success stories like that, Dawn. I believe that we're going to come out of this really better versions of ourselves.
I love that perspective. I really do. And I think it's so important for people right now to kind of try to focus on what will come, and what again, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I think there's no mystery to that. I think all projections are for our individual states, but globally it's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. But there is that silver lining at the end. We are kind of evolving into maybe working a little bit smarter, maybe connecting with our families a little bit more, maybe embracing our relationships a little bit better. Speaking of families, I talked to Kate just ever so briefly at Exchange. She's so lovely. What a beautiful gal she is. So
I am lucky.
So I do feel like things will come out on the upside, and I just think, again, it's important for everybody to stay focused on that. I know I kind of put you on the spot when I texted you and was like, can you be thinking of a quote? We Googled like mad to try to find one that you'd already made. But I felt like this situation's a little bit different than maybe any quotes you've had in the past. So I hope I gave you enough time to think of something. But in closing, well, first of all, actually, before we close, does anyone have any questions? I know we're getting a lot of comments, but not necessarily questions. I've got this real estate, celebrity on the phone, super successful in many different areas. Actually, while we're waiting for questions, why don't you tell us a little bit about the yachting that you recently brought to the U.S.? I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, they're floating quarantines. So,
No better way to social distance.
Right. They're really, all seriousness, I love sailing. Kate and I have, it's become kind of our passion. And in that kind of world, I realize that there's a very low bar in terms of level of service. And over the years, we've had many calls as far as Engel Völkers Yachting, like, hey, do you do that? And I just happened to meet Walton Lee, and they were just so amazing as far as this combination of Leanne coming from the real estate world at a very high level, and Walt coming from the yachting world where he wanted to see change. And it was just kind of like this serendipitous, like, oh my gosh, you are the perfect fit. You've got to do this with me. And they've already sold several boats with us in the last few months, and they're prepared to be able to, whatever your boat need is, whether it's in Arizona, whether it's in Chicago, the East Coast, West Coast, they are equipped with a team that can do that. I've learned it's a very global business. It's not a regional business. And so very high level service, very good people, and we are open. And so any boating needs we can help you with.
Well, congratulations on that. That's super exciting, and they couldn't be partnered with a better guy. You'll definitely get the job done. So okay, back to your quote. Did you have time to think of one that we can just leave with everyone with a bit of magic?
One that's rung to me lately. No. The moment you said, there is one. You see a lot of quotes flying through Instagram these days and so forth. And for me, Ralph Waldo Emerson. What lies behind us and what lies before us is tiny compared to what lies within us. And I think that matters right now. I think really we have to have faith in who we are and where we're going. We have to believe that, like, we're more than just our ability to go to a restaurant, Right. So yes, I think that's a very fitting
I love that
quote for where we are.
Yeah, thank you so much. Paul, thanks again so much. I knew that you would have great content, and I think that's important, and I think your message has been so strong that we just have to hold on, and we're going to get through this, and when we get through it, there's definitely a silver lining. We're going to be doing things, I think you're right, a little bit smarter, a little bit differently, and a little bit better. So I sure appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on with me today.
I'm humbled.
Words?
Thank you. Very humbled, very honored, and thank you.
Thank you. Any final words from you? And I do want to I do want to grab you and have you speak to our advisors at some point too, but that'll be a separate conversation. So great.
Final words are we're definitely going to keep selling homes. We're definitely going to come out of this stronger and better versions of ourselves. But in this time and in this moment, enjoy what it is day by day. More time with your families, more time to reflect, more time to plan, more time to get healthy. Whatever it is, really take that time. And while you're doing so, don't forget all of those. Like, I hear everyone talking, obviously the medical and the frontline people, but I also see us forgetting maybe that grocery store clerk that's there every day, risking getting sick to help just take our money, whatever it is. Just be thankful.
Yeah. Good. Thankful. Well, I'm so thankful for you, and thanks so much for jumping on with us today. I'll let you go, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you so much, Paul. Paul Benson, his Instagram is Paul Benson EV. Super easy for you to remember. So if you're not following him now, you definitely should be. And then he has a business page on Facebook as well. So awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.